Welcome to Church Biz. I am your host, Reverend Patrina White McClure. I am so excited that you have tuned in to be with us and our very, very, very special guest on this afternoon or this morning, shall I say. But before I introduce her, let me remind you that WCEG Media Enterprises is a 501c3 nonprofit community radio station. So if you are looking for a place to sow your seeds where there will be a good harvest, please give us a call at 404-490-8646, or you can go to our website at www.wcegtalkradio.com. You can follow us on all of your favorite social media outlets. Look for us at WCEG Media Enterprises, WCEG Talk Radio, WCEG Radio, and the like. And then follow us there so that you can keep up with all of our show hosts and what they are doing. And without further ado, I would like to introduce to some, like they say in church, and present to others none other than candidate Miracle Rankin, who is running for Supreme Court Justice here in Georgia. Welcome, Miracle.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. And we appreciate the time that you have made to be with us. And I do want to give a shout out to Ellie Schwartz, who did all of the background work to get us talking. And so, Miracle, how did you end up on the journey for civil rights? This is not just a run for a seat on the Supreme Court as a judge, but how did you end up in this journey?
I've been a practicing lawyer in Georgia for almost 2 decades, and throughout my 2 decades of practice, it's focused on representing individuals across our state who have been harmed and suffering some of the worst moments of their lives. And so I hold their hand, when they're in the hospital. I wipe their tears when they're crying over losing a loved one. And I really just stand in the gap for them and make sure that justice under the law is a realized experience. It's not something that's just said, but it's something that they receive. And so being able to be an advocate for my clients has really been the fuel behind, my career and my advocacy. So that's been something I've been very fortunate for. When I represent individuals, it doesn't matter if they're in Atlanta or if they're down in Augusta, I always get the question of, will I be treated the same? Will I receive justice for my case? Will they listen to me? And I have always believed, Reverend McClure, that the court system should be that one place where you're all on equal footing, where we all start at the same start line. And so I think now more than ever, it's important that we have a court that treats everybody like that when they walk in. You should know that you're going to be treated the same. Doesn't matter who you are, how powerful you are, who you may know. That court is the one place where we all start out as equal, and we should have the same rights under the law.
Well, that's more than enough reason for people to want to cast their votes on this coming Tuesday, May 19th. That is our election day. Everybody go out, cast your vote if you haven't done so in the early voting. But we do need these introductions to the communities, like such as yourself and earlier Jen Jordan, to let the communities get a taste of who you are, not just on television commercials. So, what is it that you would like for the people to know about you that they may not know?
I've been of service to Georgia since I was 16 years old. In some capacity, been finding a way to serve people. So I started out at 16 working at my local grocery store. And then I moved on and continued that service when I was in college. I went to Spelman. But one, I guess, interesting fact about me is from the first day that I started at Spelman as a full-time student, I was also a full-time worker. Because for some of us, realizing the American dream means you got to put a lot more work into it. So I knew I had to do that in order to support my way through college, but I did that by working at one of the biggest hotels in Atlanta, serving people coming into our state. And now I serve people in my practice, by going across the state and representing individuals who've been suffer some kind of major loss. They've lost a limb, they lost a loved one, or they lost some kind of bodily function. So they come to me in really bad situations. I've also served Georgia through my role as the president of the Georgia Association of Black Women Attorneys. I was the 40th president of that organization, and it's a statewide organization. So I've been serving across our state for some time. And I think that that's important to know that, because this is another opportunity to yet be of service to Georgians by being on our Supreme Court. The Supreme Court of our state makes decisions that affect our everyday lives. And so it's important to have individuals on the court who realize the implications of the decisions that they're making.
So you bring with you a wealth of experience, not only fighting for the people, but fighting with the people. And that's what needs to be understood. Not only should you be working, but we should be working, but we also need to cast our vote, not just work behind the scenes in order to validate our choice for you. So what are some of the things that do not gel with you and your personal philosophy of helping the citizens of Georgia that the Supreme Court justice, I'll start with here in Georgia, um, is not doing?
Well, I think there should be one rule of law for every individual in our state. Is we should all have the same, like I said, starting place when it comes to being in the courtrooms. And what we're seeing now more than ever is that at the federal level, some of the protections that were like those baseline ground protections that they're being taken away, and they're being sent back to the states for each state to figure out how you want to govern. And so I think it's important now more than ever that, since a lot of those big decisions are going to come back to the state to be dealt with our three branches of government, legislative, executive, and ultimately judicial, that we know who's sitting on our courts, that we have these conversations and these discourses.
Wonderful. I think because we're at the ground zero point pretty much for civil rights, people should be taking more of a special interest into all of the federal as well as the state politics, because it all impacts us. It's not just the general election and who we put into office for 4 years and then we just forget about it. We have to maintain our attention and our activity toward supporting the work that you and others like yourself continue to do. So, what are some of the ways you would recommend us on the bottom, if you will, or behind the scenes, I want to say, to do to continue to maintain that spirit of political obligation on a personal level?
I would say don't let up, right? So one of the things
Mm,
that I feel like happens frequently is that we can have waves, right? So something happens, it's a hot moment, or somebody you really want to get behind, and we put a lot of force and energy into it, and then we plateau. And then something else happens, and then we go back up, and then we plateau, right? One of the things that has been really important to me in talking to folks around our state is just reminding them that every election is important, right?
hmm
Um, every election. So whenever there's an opportunity for you to cast your ballot, to let your voice be heard, you need to participate in that. Research the candidates, research the issues, and be an active participant in our process. And it can't be just because we've had something that shocks us, right? Because every opportunity, we should be a well engaged and informed electorate. But unfortunately, what we see is that it takes some of these big moments to kind of bring people back to reality, to say maybe we should be going harder, maybe we should be working more, but we should be doing that all the time. That should be the standard. It should not be something that we're just rising to the moment. We should already be in it.
Right, right. I totally agree with you. Now, are their websites a good place to start for those candidates that we're looking for? Because that could really be a polished image, okay, that's presented of them. So when we're researching these candidates, are there other places you would recommend that we go to begin to look at them? Do we find out where they go and worship and go sit in? Are there things we can we go to the Secretary of State office and find out who voted which way? All of this, because it's also going to
So
require us to know the issues.
agree. So Google, of course, is always a great place to start, right? Especially if it's someone who has already previously held an office before. So you can Google, their voting history when they were in the House of Representatives or were on the legislature. You can figure out how are they voting, what issues did they support, what issues were they against. Sometimes you can pull the transcripts and see what they actually had to say when it comes to those issues. So just going through that process, you can find their personal Facebook, Instagram, whatever pages to see. I've seen people do that to see what their personal beliefs may be that maybe they don't share on those, like you said, polished websites, but you can see things that they may be favoring or aligned with. There's a plethora of ways that you can go out and try and figure out more about the candidates. Show up to places that they're speaking. So if they have announced that they're going to go do an interview, everything doesn't have to be an aha moment in front of a big audience. You can just pull them to the side after the interview and have that one-on-one conversation and dialogue and try to get to know them. I think it's just really important to, like I said, remain informed in the electorate and to try and get out, meet the candidates, go online, see what you can find. And if you have any questions, ask them questions. You should be like leery of, or at least it should raise like something in your mind if someone's not willing to have the conversations with you, right? Like why? I know that for some races there are rules that govern what you can and can't say or do, but just having one-on-one personal conversations of who you are, what you believe, those are things that I think you should be able to do with candidates that are on the ballot.
I totally, totally agree. I recently was able to sit in on a conversation that Senator John Ossoff had with a whole bunch of people. And then, of course, I had gone to his website previously to see the different things that he's doing. Then he gives all his contact information. But also at the end of the meeting itself, he gives everybody his cell phone number. So, I mean, I think that speaks volumes to one wanting to be accessible to their constituents because it's from them that you build your platform so that you'll know how to fight and who you're fighting for. With that also said, what are your thoughts about working across the aisle? Because that might be a little bit stickier to do.
Well, as a judge, you're not a political officer, right? You are a judge on the court. So you have to be fair and impartial, and you have to set aside your personal beliefs and follow the rule of law in the Constitution. So it's not, I wouldn't say, a matter of working across the aisle. It's what does the rule of law in Georgia say, and how does that apply to the case that's in front of you, the facts that are in front of you? Now more than ever, it's so important that we have an independent judiciary, judges that are willing to make the right decisions without any concern for fear or favor, are trying to get influence from other outside forces and parties. The judge's job is to apply the facts to the rule of law in the Constitution.
And
And that
that's
defies all party lines, in my opinion.
right, and that's how it should go. But too often we see where cases, their outcomes are not necessarily fair in judgment. And so sometimes people do find themselves in situations and circumstances, and you get what you get because you put yourself there. But then there are those certain laws and rules that have been put into place that do not hold bad party agents, if you will, accountable. And it eventually pushes up, and it looks like that the judges are showing partiality. So, how do we reconcile that with the court system, shall I say?
I think the way that the electorate reconciles it is by selecting who you want to sit on your court, right?
Hmm.
So if you have the opportunity to show up and vote, make your vote count, make it a meaningful one, and put people on the court that you believe, after doing your research and having these conversations or whatever that looks like for you, that you believe will follow the rule of law and what does the Constitution of Georgia say. That's really the only way that we will truly be able to start seeing more of a balance and being able to address those concerns, is if the people get to have a say and an opportunity to elect who they want on our state's highest courts.
Now, what have you done to connect with those younger populations who seem to think that we're talking old school, those things don't happen, when they don't realize it's that work which has afforded you the freedoms you have today, and how all the more you should want to maintain that by being active in the political system through your vote.
So I've tried to reach young people by, of course, going to colleges and speaking to them and talking to their classes or on their study breaks and having conversations at their levels about things that are of concern to them, right? Also, social media is a good way to speak to young folks, be it talking to different interviewers that, really connect with the younger audience on a level with issues and things that are concerning to them, and just being accessible. Quite a few younger adults have reached out to me and said, "Hey, I want to help on your campaign, or can you take 5 minutes and have a call with me and talk to me about what you're doing?" So again, having those conversations, being open and accessible, I think is very important, but I think there's a whole lot more work to do,
Yes.
especially in Georgia as it pertains to engaging our younger population. They make up a huge population of our state, but they're really not engaged in being a part of the electorate, which is a little concerning. So I think that just at a larger level, it's going to take a lot more engagement, and to try and figure out, how do we make sure that they understand that these decisions, these individuals that are being put into office, that it's important to them because it will ultimately affect their day-to-day lives.
I love how you said that. And also to even possibly consider going into this type of work, professionally. So, everybody can't be a rap artist, or a sports player, but this is a viable pathway for them to go into. And I like how you mentioned how there are interviewers that connect specifically with those audiences, because most of them have gravitated away from Facebook they're connecting with. So they're even migrating from Instagram, but that's still a good place for them to connect. But so I do thank you for coming to tend to our audiences in case they're still up in the air on who they should vote for and why. And so, are you originally from Georgia?
No, I'm from Louisiana. I was born there and I stayed until about age 13. We moved to Georgia at 13 when I was in high school, went to high school in Decatur, Spelman undergrad, UGA for law school. So I kind of jokingly say I'm more of a Georgia peach than I am anything else because I've been here for so long. Georgia is a place that I love. It's where my family lives, where I'm raising my babies. They were born here. And I plan to, be here until God says otherwise. Georgia is a place that has been very great to me and my family, and I'm really thankful for that.
Wonderful, wonderful. I was born in Georgia, but grew up in Maryland. And then God saw fit to bring me back to Georgia. So that's how I ended here. So I'm kind of north, not kind of sort of from Georgia. So I can relate.
Okay.
I can relate. But one thing, what are your future plans after you uh um do you have plans, let me put it like this, for teaching? Because I think so many more people need to be contacted on the lower levels after you win your judgeship.
So right now, my focus is on this election and getting past Tuesday. I really don't know what the future holds in others. I've been a mentor to plenty of young ladies across our
Okay.
state. And to me, mentorship is a form of teaching. I was involved with the Sister to Sister Mentorship Program for almost 10 years. It's a diversion program for young ladies who've had small offenses. Instead of them having a record, they come through
Wow.
the program for a year. And every other Saturday for 2 hours, we taught them. And I was over that curriculum of just like life skills and soft skills that sometimes we take for granted that we were raised with. Everybody didn't receive that. So, I mean, that's one of form of teaching that I think I loved and enjoyed the most is really just being able to get out there and impact our youth. And, pending the people of Georgia select me to be on our state's highest court, that's something I would love to continue to work with. Is really just getting out there and being able to shape young lives and show them different opportunities that are available. So I think that's one of the greatest forms of teaching. And I'll add to that, I went to Spelman and celebrated my 20th year reunion this year. And we have this
Wow.
tradition of walking through our alumni arch. And as I was walking through and headed back with my classmates, I saw one of my teachers from high school, Dr. Robinson. She's a Spelman alumna as well. And we embraced each other, but she was really one of the catalysts for me even choosing Spelman. So just going back to the young people being our future and those little seeds that you can plant at a young age can blossom into big, beautiful trees. And so I really think that it would start with our youth and just making sure I could continue to be of impact and influence.
That's beautiful. I love that. Um, uh, that's one thing I do admire of some of the judges that I've had a chance to sit into in their courtrooms. And I like how you talked earlier about that being a nonpartisan position. But they use those opportunities as well to teach. And like you said, so many of our youth, they don't get the skills or the outpouring from their parents that we may have received. So the mentorship is an excellent way to teach and to groom and to teach them self-awareness, self-esteem, their own personal value, so that they might even want to be more active in their civic responsibilities. And so how would you propose that we, the rest of our citizens, which I think you're saying, do the same thing to go ahead and mentor, get up off of our do nothings and do something about our youth now, since so many seem to be caught up with violent activities? They're trying to figure life out as they go, but we, supposedly, who have the answer, we're not doing enough. So, would Sister and Sister be a good organization you would recommend as well? Or are there others
Yeah.
that you know of that we may not be aware of?
Boys and Girls Club, Sister to Sister. There's so many, like I would say, grassroots, smaller mentorship programs. You just have to look them up in your area. But each one reach one and each one teach one. And I think if we take that idea and actually put it into application, it hopefully would create a snowball effect.
Good, good. And I just recently heard of another Boys and Girls Club whose funding has been cut. And so that has impacted the communities negatively, regardless as to what the race or their political preference is. Uh, what would you recommend? And I know that this is apart from you running for judge, uh, funding for these types of organizations, since so much is being gutted in regards to our civil rights and our needs being funded, more Medicare being cut, all of that stuff.
I just think it's important that the community supports things that they believe in. That's one thing that I
Mm-hmm.
did realize as being the 40th president of GABWA, the Georgia Association of Black Women Attorneys, that if the community believes in you, they'll support you. And so just really galvanizing community support, I think is more important now than ever to keep some of these legacy organizations going and funded.
All right. What are some of the things that you hope to tackle when you get into your judgeship position on the Supreme Court?
So again, just going back to what I've been, talking about, making sure the law of Georgia is equally applied to everybody. Um, that I think is very important, and that your viewers should know is that I'm a hard worker. I went through kind of me being in the workforce since 16 to explain that, I have made it my priority to focus on doing my job, but not just doing it really well. And I'll do that also at our state's highest court. I believe that individuals should be able to count on me to know that if I have a case that I'm working on, I will handle it very diligently with a level of seriousness, realizing that the result that comes out will impact not only one person's lives, but other individuals' lives in the state. So I'll work very hard every time to ensure that I get it right. And I will be transparent. My goal is to continue having conversations like this because individuals on the court serve the people of Georgia ultimately. And so I think it's very important that we're able to continue these conversations even after you get on the bench.
One thing I like about your and Jen's commercials, it really exemplifies how teamwork makes the dream work, or together everybody achieves more. And I think that that's the summation of all that you've been saying so far, that we all have to work together, that it's not just a me or your or some of y'all or some of my, but all of us have to work together. And this is a together issue for the proper application of justice for all. And so I want to applaud you for that, and for even deciding to move in this particular direction, because I know that it was not an easy one to make. But I again applaud you, and I thank you for doing this type of work. Um, we are getting close to a closeout time. I was wondering, would you happen to have any closing remarks that you want the voters to keep in mind for those who have not early voted when they go on Tuesday to show up?
I would just want you all to remember that your vote is your voice, it's your power. So use it and exercise it, not just in this election, but every election that you have.
Mm.
It is so important now more than ever that we are an engaged part of our electorate. And our Constitution allows the citizens of Georgia to decide who do we want to sit on our state's highest court, the court that is making decisions that affect each of our lives every day. And so now more than ever, I think it's vitally important that you have an idea of who's sitting on that court, and you actually get out and you cast your ballot and you vote for what that court looks like, not just for now, but for generations to come. Because what people don't realize is that these decisions that are made are not just in a bubble. They last sometimes for decades. And so the court's decisions are not something that just affects us for 2026 or 2027. We could be citing or referring back to that court's decision in 2037, right? So who
Mm.
is sitting on the court in this moment in time is so vitally important. And I would just remind your listeners that they need to look for a miracle on their ballot. I humbly request their vote and their support. Thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome. And your social media platforms, how do we follow you?
Miracle Rankin GA. So my first name, last name, GA. So Miracle Rankin GA, and that's on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X. So all of the platforms, same name, Miracle Rankin GA. You can also go to my website, miracleforgeorgia.com. Again, all spelled out, the word miracle, FOR, Georgia, all spelled out.com. So miracleforgeorgia.com.
Oh, thank you so much. I know you said you were at your sorority meeting, so we don't want to keep you from there, because I know you're probably reminding them of what's about to happen and how you need their support. But again, I want to thank you for being a part of today's show. And I want to remind our WCEG network, or media enterprises audience, and church biz especially, don't forget, on Tuesday, in 3 days, May 19th, that is your day to vote for Miracle, vote for Jen, and everybody that interests you, those candidates whose values line up with yours. You have to do the research, the homework. It's a lot to do in the next 3 days, but please cut off the TV a little bit. You don't have to go to that party. Do something that's critical for the survival of the citizens of the state of Georgia. You can do this, and I encourage you. And again, I thank you for tuning in. And like they say, know before you go to the polls. Okay, know before you go. So go vote. Miracle has presented her platform. She's for equal rights for all, no matter what your background is, your history, your financial classification. Vote for Miracle. Look for that miracle on your voting ballot. And again, Miss Miracle, thank you again. And may God bless you and continue to bless your efforts.
Thank you, Reverend McClure. Thank you. I appreciate being here.
Oh, you're welcome. Take care.